am Latoya Henry, and this is How's He Do It, a series of conversations with incredible, amazing people who share how they get, keep, and preserve their joy. Today, I have the honor of speaking with one of my favorite people, Reggie Van Lee. Reggie is a seasoned, decorated executive who has reached the highest levels at one of the world's top management consulting firms. He is a philanthropist who supports or sits on the board of organizations including National Cares Movement, the Kennedy Center, and the Studio Museum in Harlem. He received his bachelor's and master's from MIT and his MBA from Harvard. Welcome, Reggie.
Well, thank you. But I have to apologize. After that introduction, I may be a disappointment, but thank you.
Never, never. So I met you, I think it was at the Thurgood Marshall College Fund Gala.
Yep.
Of course, you're intelligent and you're impressive. Your resume is impressive. But what really struck me was your positivity, your authenticity, and just your general positive vibes. That's what drew me to you, and that's what makes me look forward to you every time. Every time I do an event or go to an event and I see you, that's what I think of. You exude joy.
Well, that comes out of my laziness, because a lot more work to be negative and it's a lot more work to not be genuine. So I'm lazy and I'd rather be joyous. I'd rather just be myself.
I know that one of the quotes that it's one of your staples is the two most important days in your life are the day that you are born and the day you find out why. So what's your why?
It's interesting because my why really is pursuit of excellence. And it sounds kind of lofty and it sounds sort of ethereal. But what I found is there's nothing better than the feeling of knowing you did the very best, that you excelled in whatever you're doing, whether it's a business context, whether it's in working with your friends, whether it's in your volunteer work. But this notion of excellence, how it makes you feel and how it moves other people to excellence and how people receive that excellence in a positive way and are attracted to it. There's nothing like it. So for me, that is what my second day wants to be, to really make sure I achieve that excellence. And I can't tell you in what space, because I've been in so many spaces and done so many things and could never have predicted that A was going to lead to B was going to lead to C. But in all cases, whatever I did, I was pursuing excellence and it came back to my value.
So is that pursuit of excellence, that's professional and personal and family. So it's strengths throughout life it's a pursuit of excellence.
Exactly. And sometimes they overlap. So excellence you did on a not-for-profit board comes back to help you in a business context because somebody saw you, somebody's looking at you. They see that excellence and they want it in their space. So it's best for you always to be yourself and always to pursue excellence.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say is, because I hear that, but then I know that you're very connected to your family and the causes that you choose to support typically are, have the arts or young people or education and so I would venture to think that the pursuit of excellence is the overarching theme, but I feel like there's something else. I feel like there's something else that drives you.
Yes. Well, I mean, aside from in a business context, and there I'm driving towards, making an impact, whether it's in the business world as a pure business person, in the technology aspects of that, whatever, but always to achieve at the highest level. Beyond the business context, I've discovered that there are three areas that I'm always most interested in. The arts, and that's both the performing arts and the visual arts. Mm-hmm. So helping artistic organizations that have a potential they're trying to achieve to get to that potential. Not just piling on to someone who's already at the top of their game, but rather helping people get to the top of their game. The second is in education, and whether it is mentoring kids, whether it is the college fund, whether it is anything that pushes academics and education, because I know what education has done for me. And therefore, I know how transformative education can be for people and how it can lift you up and help you reach your potential. And the
So,
third, I think the third is diversity in general. So those populations that have historically been left out, not given the opportunity they deserve, whether it is people of color, whether it is LGBTQIA, whether it is returning veterans, whether it is people with disabilities, but all of those spaces where, were it not for something that society saw as holding them back, those entities would achieve something. So I'm trying to release that constraint of what society may, the box society may put them in, so that in a diverse context, they can rise to the occasion of their real potential.
so what's your source? What's that fuel that helps you to do all of this?
It's going to sound a little trite, but my first and still best mentors were my parents.
Mm-hmm.
They're both deceased now, but they always encouraged me. They always required excellence from me. And they always made me understand that I'm part of a larger community and I have a role in participating in whatever way I can at the highest level in those communities. So even though my parents have been deceased for 20 years, I can still hear them in my head saying, was that the best you could do, really? Were you achieving what you should have achieved? Were you making the impact that you could? Were you doing it as selflessly as you could? So I can hear that. So that's still my constant inspiration. And when I've been able to help organizations and help people and advance people to meet their potential, when they have come back to me and let me know what it meant to them in their lives, there's nothing more fulfilling than that. So I get back even more than I give out.
And I love that idea that you hear your parents poured into you words of affirmation and challenge that repeat themselves to you now. What are some of the other mantras that they gave you?
Well, my parents were notorious for these amazing sayings that at the time they said them, you didn't necessarily get it, but years later you reflect on it and you really sort of get it. And I think the best one was my father. At one point at the consulting firm where I worked for 32 years, it was one of very few minorities at the top of the company. I would often complain to my parents about how lonely it felt being in some of those rooms with people that didn't look like me, people who enjoyed things in life that I didn't enjoy in life, and I was just the only person there. And my father told me something so profound, I'll never forget it. He said, it may be lonely at the top, but it's crowded at the bottom.
It may be lonely at the top, but it is crowded at the bottom.
You choose. And he said, instead of cursing the darkness around being in that room, bring others into the room that look like you. Yeah. And so my challenge always is to get to the highest level I can, but then bring others into that room with you as well. To not be resisting being there because of the loneliness, and to take that loneliness challenge as, well, let me do something about my loneliness. Let me bring other people like me into the room.
What are some of the things that you do just to keep yourself pushing and keep yourself going?
It's a little of all of that, but I am a spiritual person. I'm a religious person. And so I find solace and counsel and serenity in retreating to my religious beliefs. I'm fortunate in my home here in Texas to have a chapel in the house. And so not only on Sundays, but any other day, I can go into the chapel, close the door, pray by myself, sing if I wish, listen to music if I wish, but just get my mind in that sort of spiritual space. And it is mostly about appreciating that which I have and saying thank you. I have a friend who's Muslim, and he admonished me decades ago about how, in his opinion, Christians always pray for what they want, and Muslims always thank God for what they have. And so it's moved me so that the closest I come to asking for something is saying, thy will be done. So I would like this, but only if that's the will of God for it to come to me. So to me, the religious part is something that I'm not one of these Bible packing, always quoting scriptures to people. I'm not that sort of person. I'm a spiritual person. I love church, but I try to keep the spirit in me in the right sort of way and then share with others, not in a way to make them feel less than, not in a way for me to act like I'm holier than them, but rather to bring them into a mindset that says we have a place in the world where our time here is limited. There are things we should be trying to achieve. There are things we should want to leave behind as a legacy, and to live with that sort of joy and that sort of expectation out of life. And I'm
So,
not, we're
mhm,
not one of these fundamentalist families that, is, as I said, Bible packing all the time. We did not grow up in a church where we went to church every day of the weekend and church all day on Sunday. It was none of that. I mean, we were traditional United Methodist Sunday school and church on Sunday, and the rest of the week, you're doing your own thing. But still, this notion of spiritual, as opposed to sort of organized religion, spiritual sort of.
mhm.
And as you said, having your own private space so that you can have your individual and personal relationship with whatever higher power you recognize is really important. And the chapel started as one of my sisters here in the house wanted a prayer room, a prayer closet in her
Mhm.
apartment.
She
And
knows what it is.
and we said, well, why don't we have enough space, we're building this thing from scratch. Why don't we build a chapel as well? And some days just passing down the hall from visiting different sisters in the compound that we have here, just passing the chapel and looking in and seeing the cross does something to your spirit. It's really
Mhm.
amazing how the physicality of that space can make a difference.
So you're quarantining. You've been quarantining in Texas.
Yes, yes. And it's
All
funny,
right.
it's not much of a quarantine because we're on 15 acres. It's a 20,000 square foot house. We have a lovely pool that's heated. I can wander around the house. So I don't have to interact with other people outside of our, they don't call it a bubble. What do they call it? Our,
Yeah, I think it is the bubble. Mhm.
outside of our bubble, right? But, we are not out with other people and breathing on or sneezing on other folks or vice versa. But yes, we are quarantined here in the compound.
What is your, because I picture you, and this is just me, I picture you on the grounds going for a morning walk, sitting by the pool with a cup of tea, and then, going by the chapel and reading a bit of scripture. Like, I have a whole vision of your morning routine, but I'm interested to know what it really is.
It's not too far off of that. When I'm in New York, I have a very large terrace there in the apartment. So when weather permitting, I go outside, and just going outside and being in the air and looking up at the sky and seeing the sunrise with a cup of tea, and some toast or a donut or something gets my mind in a certain space. There are many mornings that I actually meditate. My meditations are only 10 or 15 minutes. I'm not disciplined enough to do 30 minutes of meditation, but I meditate and I think through my day and count my blessings and say my prayers and that sort of thing. In Washington, D.C., I have a terrace as well. And here in the house in Texas, aside from the chapel, outside of my bedroom, I have a Zen garden that is created as a space of Zen. And everyone who has come and stepped into the garden has said, I feel something. There's something about the way it was designed, and the designer of the space is a very spiritual person herself. So I think she did a good job with that. And I go into the Zen garden when I'm here most mornings and have my tea and just sit, and you'll hear a bird chirp and you'll feel a breeze. And it's just something you sense that there's more to life than just you,
Hmm.
people around you. You sense that. Once again, whether you don't call it God or whatever, but you sense that higher presence there. And that's how I try to start my mornings.
What are you reading? What's a book that you've read that nourishes your soul or pours into you that you would recommend for someone to read?
Well, it's interesting because what I've read most recently is Cast by Isabel
Oh
Wilkerson.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it is so timely and so prescient with the things we're going through. It was published just last year, but the whole notion of how she talks about the whole caste system in India and in Nazi Germany and in America with Black people, people of color, et cetera, and how the foundations of racism to a large extent is this notion of caste, because it just clarifies a lot of things and it helps you get beyond some of just the pure emotion around racism to really understand the structural aspects of it and what you can do to deal with it better, cope with it, et cetera. So Caste is something I'd certainly recommend you read. But a book that I've read for years and I pick it up every so often is a book by my dear friend Susan Fels Hill called
Oh,
Always Wear Joy. Always Wear Joy. It's about her mother, who was fabulous, but it gets into some of the challenges that her Black mother in Hollywood had to do with the not Black Hollywood, etc. And I had a mother who was fabulous as well, so I can relate to that in a large extent. But it's just something about the book and even about the title, Always Wear Joy. And that's what I try.
Mm-hmm.
I always try to wear joy. And I try to surround myself with things that bring joy to me. Art is very important to me. I have art everywhere. There's a piece behind me, as you can see, but I have art all over my house, including the bathroom, in the closets. I have art everywhere because that's just the joy that I want to wear every day.
Oh, that is the joy I want to wear every day. Another one that I love is Miss Susan Fails Hill. And what I love about her is that she's fabulous, but she's really spunky, really funny. And what I admire about her and you is, in so many of these spaces, people feel or seem to feel like that professionalism means being buttoned up and not sharing personality, right? Not really giving a whole lot of themselves. And that's one of the things that I love about you and Susan is that you you're the professional, you're buttoned up your own, but your personality shines through. And that's one of those things when I started at Thurgood Marshall and I told you I saw you and I was like, just overjoyed and just living for you, was that you were who you were.
Well, the thing is, people will judge you when they see that you're being fake about X. They wonder, well, is he fake about Y and Z and A and B as well? So there's something about being genuine that people value that. Now, that having been said, you don't give them too much. You shouldn't give them too much.
Right,
And
right.
you got to have your act together. And you have to earn the right to really be yourself by delivering.
Hmm.
I'm here to do a job. Let me deliver on that job and not let all this other stuff overshadow that. So it's fine for me to do my job and then be me in that context. And everybody has to find their own balance and what really works for them. But I found that it is too exhausting for me to be somebody else. And if I'm in an environment that really requires me to be someone very different, I need to leave that environment.
Yes.
Plain and simple. And I think I have
Whew.
options. I'm not trying to force myself to do something and have a life of displeasure. Let me find a place that works for me.
You gave me a whole life manual that I am going to take and I am going to study and I am going to share with the world.
The only other thing I share is that we are valuable entities in this world, but we have to accept that. And we can't expect or look for or require other people to affirm us. We have to affirm ourselves. And what you find is once you affirm yourself, you will start getting affirmation from others, but not the other way around. So some people have no reason to be unhappy, but choose to be unhappy. And I choose joy.
I choose joy. I think that's the perfect note to end on. Thank you, Reggie Van Lee, for joining me for How's He Do It, a series of conversations on how amazing individuals like Reggie get, keep, and preserve their joy. Thank you, Reggie.
Thank you.
I
Thank
live for you. Oh, I always live for you. Reggie, thank you so much.